Hi there, I'm paxen imzi. I make various things, and the thing that we're going to be talking about in this video is how I used Minecraft as a sort of filmmaking tool. Recently, on one of my other channels, I released a video showcasing 70 games built into YouTube, which are called YouTube Playables. This video also featured a 3-act story with a B-plot that all took place in Minecraft as the, location, I guess. Actually, a lot of it ended up being behind me over there, but we'll get to that later. I should also mention that since this is a behind the scenes, naturally it's going to contain spoilers for that 3-act story, so if you'd like to watch that before you continue here, there's a link in the description if you'd like to watch. Obviously, I'm kind of biased because I made it, but it will provide a lot of context for the stuff we're going to be talking about here. So, yeah, link in the description. Firstly, I think it'd be fun to go over the project's goals and restrictions and how they shaped the final product, aka why I chose Minecraft over something like live action or like using hand-drawn stuff or maybe even like Blender. My original vision for this project was to create a YouTube video showcasing just a few playables, have some sort of an on-screen character representation of myself, and finally to learn Blender for all of this stuff. Over time, though, YouTube just kept adding more games to their playables section, and my ambition for the overall project kind of grew a lot. So my reworked vision ended up being showcase 70 games in a timely manner, and also to tell a 3-act story with 2 characters that takes place at multiple locations. Eventually, the limitations/restrictions ended up being not learning Blender for time reasons, though I have used Blender in the past and currently kind of use Blender for like Metal Heart Neo Y2K type stuff. Eventually, that led me to Minecraft, which is something that I've been playing for years, I'm sure as many of you watching have as well. So 2 of the main restrictions I had for myself in regards to Minecraft were that I didn't want to use any extra mods outside of Optifine, and that I didn't want to just do the default like shake my mouse in third person thing that everyone does. Taking into account both the limitations, restrictions, as well as my reworked vision and overall goals for the project, eventually I landed on the following. Using builds I had made previously for fun, just because I like to build Minecraft houses for fun. Using armor stands to represent the characters, which eventually led me to creating a pretty basic kind of puppeting system with command blocks and stuff. Also eventually giving up on the no mods except Optifine thing when Flashback came out because, oh my goodness, we're going to talk about Flashback later. And finally, interconnecting the story with the gameplays and like showcase structure, which in other words meant giving reasons in the story for the gameplay sections to go a lot faster than they normally do, aka the lightning rounds in that video. Now that last one isn't really relevant to this video, I thought I'd just include it as like a little extra. I know you already read the title and are probably thinking, where the heck are the sets? Well, it's actually, there's one behind me right here, see? This is one of the sets. Let's go take a look. Where the heck is the camera? Okay, there we go. Now this is what I referred to as the main house or like the main set, and off in the distance you can see the cabin set over there. We'll get to that one next, but first we're going to be talking about the main house. Now the main house itself was built back in 2019 just as like a for fun Minecraft project that I wanted to do. This is before I even was doing anything related to like this type of Minecraft like pseudo cinematography. So a lot of the smaller details like this little corner here with the like discs up there and also the pool table / billiards table was just already here to begin with, which worked out pretty well because the first game in the playables like showcase is the billiards. So I just ended up kind of placing the armor stand here and then putting my camera over here, and then that worked pretty well. The nice thing about using a house that I had already made is that I could literally walk anywhere in this house for the most part, and it would look fine on camera. So like if I wanted to have a scene at the dining table here, I could just do so. Or like if I wanted to, let's say, go upstairs and stand in front of this like aquarium fish tank thing, I could have done that. Over here we even have a little office area that was a part of the original house build that ended up being a pretty good screen to use for the like I guess screen parts. Over here we have the main set room. This is where the majority of the talking headshots take place. There's also this little sign that I kept changing throughout filming. And over here is the editor desk, and outside just right here, as you can see, I think there's a shot where it kind of pans like this way, and we see the editor character over here talking to the pufferfish. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, again, I'd recommend watching the original video first. But yeah, that's basically the main house set. There isn't really a whole lot to it. Well, I guess one more thing to note is that the like foliage outside, all of these trees, these are all placed at very specific spots so that if I wanted to put the camera here, it wouldn't look like I'm in a super flat world. Another example, it kind of just looks like it's more natural out there. Outside here, you can see there's just a whole smattering of random tree types, mostly jungle trees because they're tall. I think there's also some mangrove trees because they are, it's right there, just because they take up a lot of space. This angle over here, you can see there's trees in the background, as well as over here at the desk. I probably could have put some more that direction. Oh, there's also just like a random light there that you can't see on camera. Maybe you can see it in the video, I'm not actually sure. All right, moving on to the cabin house. I'm kind of bummed I didn't get to use more of this house because it is quite detailed as the other house is, but all I really ended up using was this outdoor shot as well as just like walking up to the door and then I think we just skip directly upstairs to up here. The camera also does not move very much in this room itself. If we just walk around here, you can see the outside world. It doesn't look too good. It doesn't look very realistic, which is fine because you only really see outside that window, I think, in the like the final shots. But yeah, there's like a whole lot of stuff. There's a couch down here. There's like a little kitchen. There's a waterfall back here, which the shaders are kind of making it hard to see. There's an entire bathroom back here that's kind of nice. The little sink back here. There's also this pond, which I guess I would have used more of if there was more B-roll at this house. There's like a car I made, little outdoor cooking area with a fireplace and another grill, like a water, like a cooler outside. But yeah, that's pretty much the cabin set. Next up, we'll be taking a look at two of the one-off locations that were featured. First off, behind me is the in the middle of the forest set. As you can probably tell, this is very much not in the middle of a forest and is literally in the middle of a super flat world with a bunch of houses next to it. Fortunately though, because I knew the camera angles were only really going to be like here, maybe like up here, and then I think also like facing this direction. I didn't really have to add too many trees. In fact, there's some podzol just like over here that you can't even really see visibly because it's being blocked by all this extra stuff. Little fake hill that's not even completed. Believe it or not, this location itself was only made for the video's sake. I didn't just make this for fun like randomly. This is specific. Oh my gosh, that's too zoomed in. This is specifically only for that section. You may have also spotted these two command blocks over here. If I go ahead and step on these, and free cam over here, you can see the particle system starts on the dummy. And there's a few middle shots here that I used flashback for. So essentially what I did was I just set my flashback camera over there and stood on this to activate the particles and then stepped off of it to turn them off. Next up, we're going to be looking at a location that only showed up for just a few seconds in the video during the Cards of the Undead review. This is a house that I had made also maybe not in 2019, maybe like 2020-ish, that I slightly modified with this exterior fence and a bunch of trees around it just so that on camera it would look like it was more in the middle of nowhere. If we go ahead and open the door, there is absolutely nothing. There is slight like foliage on the roof, but it's decayed and dead. And yep, that's basically it for the zombie house. Next up, I'm going to be showcasing the armor stand puppeting system that I made. Now, before I show you anything, this is not a tutorial by any means. All my command block knowledge is mostly limited to pre 1.12 update changes. So most of the stuff I'm doing here is kind of based on an older mentality of how command blocks worked, and then just trying to jam the new system into how I think it should work. The majority of filming was done using dummy number 1, which doesn't have a 1 at the end of the name. It's just called dummy. And then a lot of the secondary shots where I needed to have 2 of the characters on screen, I would use dummy 2. Something of note is that both dummy and dummy 2 play both characters in that video. Those characters being, and I'm going to use the names that I use in my notes, Pax main, which is the one that's playing the games and is also the one who's doing all the voiceover for the majority of the video, and then editor Pax, which was the secondary character who only spoke in the Animal Crossing voice, at least for the most of the video. If you've watched the whole thing, you'd know what happens. Now, as you can see, both these dummies are wearing the exact same thing, which was an issue that I pretty quickly figured out, but it was too lazy to change. So what I ended up doing was having Pax main only face the right side of the screen, and then having Pax editor only face the left side of the screen. There is a shot at the end where the camera orbits around Pax editor as they basically transition into the main version of me, which is supposed to be symbolic of like me taking over the channel from me, but like a different mentality. So I don't know. You have to watch to know what that means. Now let's actually get into what's going on here, because there is honestly not too complicated of a system. It's just kind of a lot of different things. We'll be looking at the basic pose as an example. If I were to just hold this, you can see this is what the basic pose looks like. In this repeating command block, we're detecting if the player is holding a white bed item, which is this one right here. And if it does detect me holding the white bed, it will set a block of redstone right here. And this goes for all of the other ones. So if I hold the gray bed or the light gray bed, it'll go here. If I hold like the red bed, it'll go here. And as you can see, they're all different. The next thing that's happening is above is a chain command block set to conditional. What this does is it only lets the command run if the command block below it has a like successful output basically. And what this is doing is it's data merging the armor stand, which is named dummy, with all of this extra like position data, which is how we're getting like different movements. As you can see, the arm is moving up and down. Also, before you leave a comment saying that I could have put the data merge command inside of the execute command in place of the set block, I'm very well aware. I just wanted a visual indicator for it, and also I wanted to be able to link up other things. So like for instance on this one, we're looking for the stick. So if I go ahead and do this, now I can also trigger like additional stuff. But yeah, let's explain what the heck these guys even do and how they work. For the vast majority of talking headshots, all I did was just mash the 1 and 2 buttons on my keyboard using these 2 beds or alternatively maybe using this bed so that I can get different head movements. So like this one's a little more subtle, this one is a little more extreme, these ones are a lot more extreme. And kind of a little like immersion break fun fact for you, the majority of times that this character is speaking in the Final Cut are not actually synced to what I'm saying versus what I'm doing now, which is where I'm kind of hitting the buttons as I'm speaking. Most of the footage ended up being me just mashing 1 and 2 or 1 and 2 and 3, or like swapping between these beds in a rhythm that sounded kind of like speech. And then what I would do is I would just cut around that so that it looked like it would sync with the voice. Over here I have a chest filled with all of the different basically emotes that I made. So there's the basic stand, head nods, there's a yes and a no animations. There's also this sort of specialty one that I have where if I select the paper item, you can see my FOV changes, and that's done in-game by applying slowness to the player. Oh, I forgot to mention this, but for the majority of the talking headshots, the Minecraft player, like my going into F1 to hide the HUD, is the camera, opposed to using something like a free cam or opposed to using something like flashback, which is why every talking headshot is a tripod shot for the most part. Also because it really works better for the talking headshots because you really don't need too much camera movement. So again, yeah, selecting the paper will select a pufferfish, which in this case is correct, even though the items are different, and this says check paper, and that's very obviously not a piece of paper. Originally, this was used to check a piece of paper, but over time I realized I could just swap out the item value, and I think like this command block, yeah, item ID pufferfish, I would swap that out for like nether brick to represent a phone, piece of paper to represent a piece of paper. That's mostly it for dummy 1. They're the more versatile version of the like puppet. Dummy 2, however, it really does put the dummy in the dummy name. Dummy 2 is essentially only capable of doing this little idle animation, which I have linked to this piece of paper, or not piece of paper, this map. So if the system over there detects I have a filled map, it will toggle this, what is this called, like a copper bulb, and it will turn on and off this little clock, which is the animation clock. Now dummy 2 is also interesting because he is linked to the floating dummy animation cycle. So if I go ahead and select this stick here, you can hear some lightning in the background, there's some particles that appear all of a sudden, and all of a sudden this dude's floating. If I deselect this, he'll stop floating. Select again, they keep floating. This is the exact same idea. We're just detecting if the player is holding an item and then triggering this little animation cycle over here, as well as teleporting them up, turning their gravity off, and then also teleporting them up and down. I think it's literally like 0.1 of a block or something. Let's see. Or sorry, 0.1 of a block. And this I thought was a pretty convincing enough animation. So if we just deselect that, there we go. Lastly, there's an additional functionality where if you hold the stick and then put it in your offhand, the animation cycle will continue. This way I can go ahead and animate character number 1 while character number 2 is floating, and then yeah, so that's how that works. The way that these characters are moved throughout the world are by selecting different items. So I have a lightning rod to move character number 1 like this, it'll just get teleported to wherever I am, and also T-pose just because I thought that was funny. And then the nether star will move dummy number 2. So if I ever need to move them around, that's how I do it. There's also 2 scenes in the video where I have the characters sort of walking around in this funny T-pose way, but the first way was just by teleporting the armor stand with the command block, and the second way at the end of the video was just by going into flashback and hiding the player model. So if I go ahead and start recording myself now, and I kind of walk around, do some little moves, and then I go ahead and disable the render player option in the render settings, and then I hit play. You'll see that this armor stand is seemingly walking around all on its own, which is kind of funny, even though in reality, the Minecraft character is the one doing all the walking. It's just getting teleported to them. As for these 2 one-off models and all of the different animations that I created for these characters, I'll leave a link to the website that I used. It's a really useful website, and that's basically how I made the super basic puppeting system. Lastly, we'll be taking a look at how I used flashback to help with some of the visual storytelling elements. I should also mention now that this is not a tutorial on how to use flashback, though I will be explaining some of the basics just so that we're all on the same page. Now, I've actually been recording the last few seconds of my speech here, and we're going to be opening flashback and taking a look at how to use it. So let's just, I guess, run over here. All right, so we are now inside of flashback. As you can see, our Minecraft gameplay is in the middle, but currently it's frozen and there's nothing going on. So to fix this, all we have to do is hit play and our gameplay will start going as if we're watching like a replay and we're like spectating. So how do we get usable footage? Well, it's actually quite simple. So we're gonna move our camera down here like so. You just use by flying around with your regular Minecraft controls, and you hit this button right here, add keyframe. So what this has done is essentially added a little marker for our position data and also our time data in relation to the entirety of the recording. As you can see, this little like green wireframe thing represents our camera, and if we just hit play, our camera is now locked to this position. Now obviously this is a little boring and our character actually moved upwards, so what we're going to do here is we're going to just go hit play, wait for our character to move a little bit, and oh, there we go. So next what we're going to do is we're just going to move our camera up to here and see where he goes. Okay, a little more upward like that. Okay, that looks good. So now we're going to place down another keyframe for our camera, and if we go ahead and press play from the first frame, you'll see our camera starts moving. And now this is maybe not the best shot, but we can see our character kind of just in the screen, in the frame the whole time. Maybe, for instance, we want that camera to go up way sooner so that we don't have to wait a little bit. You can just move the keyframe down here sooner. And there we go. Camera's a lot faster now. So yeah, there we go. That's essentially the basics of what flashback does. I know I kind of went through that pretty quickly, but this is not a tutorial, like I said. However, I will be leaving a bunch of tutorials and just useful videos relating to flashback in the description below. So if you're interested in learning about flashback, go check this out. Now that that's out of the way, we can go ahead and dive into how I use flashback to help aid with some of the visual storytelling. Just as a mini disclaimer before I say anything, I'm not a film student. I haven't gone to film school. I've just had a passive interest in like filmmaking, cinematography stuff for a while now. Again, I should emphasize this is more of a passive interest sort of thing, and so take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. Alright, so firstly, one of the things that I kind of used throughout the entirety of this project was the fact that most of the camera shots ended up being sort of tripod static camera angles, and after I saw how easy it was to use flashback and all the cool camera movement you could get, I knew I really needed to lean into this whole contrast of camera movement throughout the video thing, and that I should save for the most part this like really interesting dynamic camera movement for the ending sequence so that it would feel as different as possible from the rest of the video. If you want to see not only an incredible use of Minecraft as a filmmaking tool, but also an excellent use of this contrasts in camera movement idea, I'd highly recommend checking out Ivory's White Pine series. Specifically episode 1 is where this idea is used. It's genuinely such a good series. She's definitely pushing the envelope of what Minecraft is capable of as far as cinematography stuff goes. So if anything I'm saying in this video interests you, please go check out that series. It's so good. Next we'll be taking a look at the ending sequence of the Playables video, as it has most of the flashback use in the entirety of that project, aside from one section towards the middle, which I kind of used it for to tease what was going to happen towards the end. So kicking off the ending sequence, we have a nice zoom out of the fire up close, zooming out to show editor Paxen over here's like reaction to it. We then cut immediately to outside where the camera is zooming in on Pax main over here. We probably lost all of the footage and there was like only one game left to do. You should have taken those breaks. You would have been able. Just very subtle camera movement just to try to ease the viewer into the idea that we're going to be getting a little more like interesting with the camera movement. We then immediately cut to a dolly zoom, which is in here to not only look pretty cool, but is here to kind of represent the editor character going a little bit insane, as essentially a dolly zoom is like changing the focal length and moving closer or further from the subject at the same time as you're adjusting the focal length. So the whole world around them is stretching, which I just thought looked cool just in general. And then immediately we cut to the static camera angle of what we're kind of used to seeing, where the camera is really just pointed at one character primarily, like the rule of thirds corner type thing. This was used as a sort of fake out, as everything building up to this moment has sort of kind of been growing in intensity. The music's getting more loud, it's getting more intense. The camera's been moving a lot more frequently. I mean, we just came off of that dolly zoom. So again, we're just playing with more contrast here. You know what, when you put it like that, maybe you're right. Maybe this is my... And then we get the FOV changing slightly where it's getting kind of bigger so that it feels like we're moving backwards. This is used as a sort of anticipatory camera movement before we then eventually pounce upward, following the movement of Pax main getting lifted up into the sky with magic. This was done because when the armor stand gets teleported up into the air, it really isn't all too dramatic, and I really wanted this scene to feel like it had a lot of like weight to it, like a lot of like fun, like impact. As a matter of fact, let me open up the original previs for this. Oh, okay, yeah, there it is. You can see it's kind of dinky and lame. We then see the FOV zoom in a little bit on this little thing in the middle. This is supposed to represent the character's voice, and the way that that effect was achieved is a little bit funny. As you can see in my hand here, I'm holding the stick that's responsible for triggering the floating cycle. And the way that the note block thing works is that if I go ahead and select a jukebox, any second now, there it is, there's the, not jukebox, note block. If I select a note block, it'll continue this animation, and it will also start spawning note block particles on my player. So instead of animating like note block particles and moving, I am the animation. When it flies down like this, it's literally just my character flying down like that. And that's kind of it just for a little bit. We then get a bit of symbolism where Pax editor, again, looking to the left side of the screen, eventually will look at the right side of the screen thanks to this little camera orbit. Not only does the camera orbit look cool, but it is also getting our subject from looking at the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. As you can see right here, he's now looking at the right side of the screen. And our main version of the character is just like dead center in the middle. And then we cut back to looking at the right side again. After all the fun cartoon violent sound effects are done, our camera eventually looks like this, where it appears to get knocked out of the sky. This was essentially done in reverse. Now, when I say done in reverse, what I mean is I set this keyframe here first because I liked how the framing looked. I then moved back frame by frame until the camera was suspended in the air, kind of tracking it as if it was falling in reverse. So the camera moves backwards here, goes up again. So then playing it in real time, very slowly, we can see camera is kind of knocked. It's looking upwards. We're pretending it's a physical object. Right here, I kind of thought it would be cool if the camera hit something and sort of lunged forward a little bit like that. And again, it lunges forward. It's kind of tilting and it eventually settles in on where I wanted it to be for the final framing. Before we wrap up fully here, I wanted to mention that I am interested in making more behind the scenes content covering the production aspects of the We Tried Playables video that I made, as that project took a year to complete and I feel like I really learned a whole lot during it. So yeah, I hope you got something positive out of this, even if you don't really care about the technical aspects and you kind of just enjoyed watching for whatever reason. Oh, and of course, everything I mentioned in this video, there's a link in the description for that. So if you're interested in learning more about Flashback, or you want to watch White Pine, because it's very, very good, once again, go watch White Pine. Links to that stuff will be in the description. The Armor Stand website's also down there. And yeah, till next time, see ya. I'm gonna walk this way now.